Hey everyone, welcome to the show. Ever feel like California is a place where, dreams can either come true in like this really spectacular fashion or just totally crash and burn? We're diving into Golden State, The Making of California, a historical deep dive by Michael Hiltzik.
Oh, okay.
It's a history book, but honestly, it reads like an epic tale full of, ambition, risk, and reinvention.
Yeah, I agree.
If you're fascinated by stories of like pioneers striking it, rich Hollywood glamour, and the whole tech revolution, then this one's for you,
I think anyone who's ever even just visited California will find this book really captivating.
for sure. So make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and you'll find a link to the book in the description below.
Definitely check it out.
We're going to explore how this land of sunshine and Hollywood became the cultural and economic powerhouse it is today.
It's a wild ride, believe me.
I bet. So you've read the book. What stood out to you the most?
What's so captivating about Hiltzik's approach is how he shows that this tension between paradise and potential downfall is baked right into California's DNA even before it became a state.
Okay, so let's unpack this. The book starts with this idea that California has always inspired extreme reactions. People either fall head over heels for it or predict its imminent doom.
Ugh.
Why do you think that is?
It's fascinating how this back and forth between optimism and pessimism is rooted in California's history. Think about the gold rush. It lured people with the promise of striking it rich,
Right.
but it also brought incredible hardship and, for many, crushing disappointment.
Right, like those poor souls on the Donner Party. Their story's almost a cautionary tale, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't all sunshine and roses for those early settlers.
Exactly. The Donner Party's tragic fate reminds us that the pursuit of opportunity in California has always come with risks.
Right.
And even beyond the gold rush, California has always been shaped by these dramatic swings in fortune. Booms and busts in agriculture, industrial revolutions, natural disasters like earthquakes and wildfires.
Yeah, it seems like that's a constant throughout its history, this sort of cycle.
It's a pattern throughout its history, for sure.
So it's like California is constantly being tested, but those tests also force it to adapt and evolve.
Precisely. These challenges, as devastating as some have been, become catalysts for innovation and reinvention.
Hmm.
You can almost see how Californians develop this mindset of resilience,
Yeah,
of bouncing back from setbacks and finding new ways to thrive.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like that whole, when the going gets tough, the tough get going.
Exactly.
Okay, so speaking of overcoming challenges, one of the early hurdles California faced was, well, becoming California in the first place.
Right.
Those pioneers who tried to seize it from Mexico, the Bear Flag Revolt. What can you tell us about that?
The Bear Flag Revolt is a fascinating, if somewhat messy episode. It shows how complex and sometimes ethically ambiguous California's past can be.
Okay.
These early settlers, they were driven by a mix of motivations. And not all of them were noble or even legal. It wasn't simply a black and white fight for freedom. Their actions had lasting consequences, particularly for the indigenous population. A fact Hiltzik doesn't shy away from.
That's a side of the story we can't ignore, right? The treatment of Native Americans in California is a truly tragic chapter.
Absolutely. Hiltzik highlights the pattern of exploitation and displacement that had a devastating impact on California's native tribes. It's a crucial reminder that progress for some often came at a terrible cost for others, and that the California we know today is built on layers of historical injustice.
And even after achieving statehood, California continued to grapple with social and political tensions, right? We're talking workers' rights, anti-Chinese sentiment, the rise of political machines. It almost feels like a microcosm of America's struggles as a whole.
What's so interesting is how these tensions played out so dramatically in California. Think about the Muscle Slough tragedy where settlers clashed violently with the powerful Southern Pacific Railroad.
Oh, yeah. I remember reading about that.
This event, which many people might not be familiar with, encapsulates the struggle between ordinary people and these massive, powerful interests that were shaping the state.
For our listeners who may not know, the Muscle Slough tragedy was a land dispute that turned deadly. It's a really powerful example of how land ownership, corporate power, and even violence shaped California's development.
Exactly. And Hiltzik brings these struggles to life so vividly. You can almost feel the tension building as these events unfold.
Yeah.
But it's not all doom and gloom. The book also captures the incredible energy and ambition that fueled California's growth, particularly in the development of Los Angeles, the rise of Hollywood, and the birth of Silicon Valley.
It's mind-boggling how California has been at the forefront of so many cultural and technological revolutions. Did anything in particular strike you about how Hiltzik describes this period of rapid growth and change?
What's remarkable is how he captures both the positive and negative aspects of these transformations. He celebrates the innovation and creativity, but also acknowledges the environmental costs, the growing inequality, and the challenges of managing such rapid growth.
So it's not just a, rose-colored glasses view of the
No,
past.
no, not at all. It's a balanced perspective that reminds us that progress always has a price.
Speaking of downsides, Hiltzik also delves into the environmental challenges California has faced, starting with how overgrazing during the gold rush led to significant damage.
Right.
He connects that to the issues California still grapples with today, like wildfires and drought.
That's right. He skillfully weaves the environmental theme throughout the book. California's history is inseparable from its unique and fragile environment.
It's like you can't tell one story without the other.
Exactly. He explores how Californians have tried to harness and control nature, but also how nature has a way of pushing back, reminding us of our limits.
Like the 1906 San Francisco earthquake?
Yeah.
That must have been a major wake-up call, literally.
Absolutely. The earthquake and subsequent fire were devastating, reshaping the city both physically and psychologically.
I can't even imagine.
It's a stark reminder of the forces of nature that Californians have always had to contend with.
Right.
But it also showed their resilience. They rebuilt, innovated, and adapted, setting the stage for the San Francisco we know today.
So even in the face of disaster, they found a way to come back stronger.
Exactly. That's a recurring theme in California's history, this ability to bounce back from adversity and find new ways to thrive.
Before we move on, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier about California being a place where people sought a fresh start.
Okay.
Hiltzik talks about this idea that California was seen as a land of reinvention, a place to escape the past and build a new life. Do you think that still holds true today?
That's an intriguing question. California's reputation as a land of opportunity definitely persists. It still draws people from all corners of the globe. But I think the nature of that opportunity has evolved. In the early days, it was about physical space, the chance to strike it rich like during the gold rush. Later, it shifted towards industries like Hollywood and Silicon Valley, offering the allure of fame and fortune.
So how would you define the California dream today? What draws people here now?
Today, I believe it's more about a sense of possibility. It's the belief that in California, anything is possible. People still come to pursue their dreams, but those dreams are more diverse and multifaceted than ever before.
It sounds like the California dream has become more individualized, more focused on personal fulfillment than the specific outcome.
There's a lot of truth to that. While traditional notions of wealth and success are still part of the California dream, there's a growing emphasis on creativity, innovation, and even social impact. It's not just about climbing the corporate ladder anymore.
It's like the definition of success has broadened, become more inclusive.
Exactly. It's less about achieving a predetermined goal and more about the journey, the pursuit of something meaningful that aligns with your own values and aspirations.
That makes the California dream a lot more relatable, don't you think?
Absolutely. It's not just about material success. It's about finding your own path and making a meaningful contribution to the world.
Hiltzik really brings this idea to life through the stories he tells. One that stuck with me was Sam Brannan, who was part of that first wave of Mormon settlers, but ended up one of the richest men in California during the gold rush. What a fascinating character.
Sam Brannan perfectly embodies the type of individual drawn to California in those early days. He was an entrepreneur, a showman, a bit of a rogue. He saw the potential of the gold rush and seized it, amassing a fortune in the process. His story, like many others in California's history, is full of contradictions and complexities.
It's almost like those old westerns, but in real life with all the grit and drama.
There's definitely a sense of adventure and risk that permeates California's history. It's a land where fortunes were made and lost dreams were realized and shattered, and where larger-than-life characters emerged from the chaos. But we can't forget that it wasn't all gold and glory for those early settlers. Hiltzik doesn't shy away from the harsh realities they faced.
You're right. The book paints a vivid picture of the hardships they endured. The journey west was perilous, and life in early California could be brutal. He even talks about how diseases like cholera ravaged those traveling to California, leaving a trail of death and suffering in their wake.
It's a crucial reminder that we often romanticize the past, forgetting the struggles and sacrifices people faced. Behind the myths and legends, there were real people trying to survive and build a new life in a challenging and often unforgiving environment.
And those struggles played out against a backdrop of social and political upheaval. The book mentions how, after the gold rush, California was a place where the rule of law was tenuous at best and vigilantism was rampant.
Yes, those early years of statehood were marked by a lack of effective governance. The massive influx of people from all over the world created a chaotic and often lawless environment. It was a time of great opportunity, but also great danger.
It really does sound like the Wild West we see in movies, doesn't it?
In many ways, it was. There were clashes between different groups, disputes over land and resources, and a general sense of instability. But it's remarkable how California eventually emerged from that chaos to become the stable and prosperous state it is today.
It speaks volumes about the resilience and adaptability of those who built California. They faced incredible challenges, but ultimately created a society that has become a model for the world in many ways.
It's a testament to their ingenuity and determination. They weren't afraid to experiment, to try new things, and to adapt to changing circumstances. And that spirit of innovation is still very much alive in California today.
One of the key factors in California's success was the railroads. Wouldn't you say Hiltzik really emphasizes how crucial they were in connecting California to the rest of the country and driving economic growth?
Absolutely. The railroads were transformative. They opened up California to trade, and tourism facilitated the movement of people and goods and fueled the development of new industries. But like many innovations, they also brought their own set of problems.
That's right. Hiltzik points out how the railroad companies, particularly the Southern Pacific, gained enormous wealth and political power, often at the expense of ordinary Californians.
Yes, the railroads, while essential for California's development, also became symbols of corporate greed and political corruption. They used their influence to manipulate politicians, exploit workers, and stifle competition. This led to widespread resentment and eventually fueled a backlash against their unchecked power.
It seems like a classic story of progress and its discontents, right? The railroads brought undeniable benefits, but also created new problems and exacerbated inequalities.
Exactly. It's a pattern we see repeated throughout California's history. And even today, progress often comes with a price, and the benefits aren't always distributed equally. Hiltzik challenges us to think critically about who benefits from progress and who bears the costs.
And that brings us to the rise of Los Angeles. Hiltzik describes how it transformed from a sleepy pueblo into a sprawling metropolis. What were some of the key factors that drove that transformation?
Los Angeles is a fascinating case study in how California constantly reinvents itself. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, it experienced explosive growth fueled by the arrival of the railroads, the discovery of oil, and the burgeoning film industry. Each of these factors brought its own set of opportunities and challenges, shaping the city's identity and trajectory.
And of course, we can't talk about Los Angeles without mentioning. Hollywood describes how the film industry became a defining feature of Los Angeles and California, shaping its image and its economy.
Hollywood became synonymous with glamour, fame, and fortune, drawing people from around the globe who dreamed of stardom. It also played a significant role in shaping American culture, projecting images of California and the American West onto a global stage.
But as with many things in California's history, there's a dark side to the Hollywood story, right? Hiltzik doesn't shy away from the scandals, the exploitation, and the cutthroat nature of the industry.
You're absolutely right. Hollywood, like California itself, has always been a place of extremes where the stakes are high and the boundaries between dreams and reality are often blurred. It's a place where ambition and creativity collide with greed and the relentless pursuit of fame and fortune.
And beyond Hollywood, California has always been a magnet for those seeking alternative ways of life, those who want to build a better world.
Absolutely. Hiltzik describes how California attracted a wide range of utopian communities and social movements. He mentions groups like the Kauai Cooperative Commonwealth, a socialist colony founded in the late 19th century. These communities, though not always successful, reflected a desire to create a more just and equitable society.
It's like a through line in California's history, this desire to challenge the status quo and experiment with new social arrangements.
Exactly. And that desire for social justice continued to shape California's history throughout the 20th century.
Hiltzik gives the example of Upton Sinclair's End Poverty in California campaign during the Great Depression. Even though it didn't achieve its goals, it showed how much people craved economic security and social welfare during a time of widespread hardship.
Sinclair's campaign, radical for its time, foreshadowed many of the social programs that would later be implemented as part of the New Deal. His ideas, though controversial, then highlight this recurring theme in California's history, a willingness to challenge the status quo and experiment with new solutions to social and economic problems.
It's fascinating how California seems to be at the forefront of these social and political movements, whether it's utopian communities, socialist campaigns, or even unconventional pension plans like the Townsend Plan. It's like a breeding ground for new ideas and policies.
I think California's size, its diversity, and its willingness to embrace change have made it a hotbed for both progressive and conservative movements. It's a state that's constantly pushing boundaries and testing the limits of what's possible.
But of course, not all of those experiments have been positive. Hiltzik doesn't shy away from the darker aspects of California's political history, such as the internment of Japanese Americans during World War II.
The internment of Japanese Americans is a truly shameful chapter in California's history. It serves as a stark reminder of how easily fear and prejudice can erode civil liberties, especially during times of crisis. It's a reminder of how fragile our freedoms can be and the importance of safeguarding them.
It's a sobering thought. And unfortunately, it wasn't just Japanese Americans who faced discrimination. Hiltzik also discusses the challenges other minority groups have encountered, including Black Americans and Mexican Americans.
Yes, California's history is marked by a long and ongoing struggle for racial and social justice. Hiltzik highlights how various groups have faced systemic discrimination in everything from housing and employment to education and law enforcement.
It makes you realize that the fight for equality is far from over.
You're absolutely right. While California has made significant progress in many areas, deep-seated inequalities still need to be addressed. Hiltzik's book is a powerful reminder that the pursuit of a more just and equitable society requires constant vigilance and effort.
Moving on, Hiltzik also delves into the rise of Richard Nixon and his early political career in California. What insights did you find particularly interesting in that section?
Nixon's rise to power is a complex story that reflects the evolving political landscape of post-war America. He skillfully used anti-communist rhetoric and shrewd political maneuvering to gain a foothold in California, a state that was becoming increasingly influential on the national stage.
It's fascinating how Hiltzik connects Nixon's early career to broader national trends like the Cold War and the Red Scare.
Nixon was a master at exploiting the anxieties of the Cold War era. He used the fear of communism to discredit his opponents and advance his own political career. His tactics, though often unethical, proved effective in a climate of heightened fear and paranoia.
It's a reminder of how political opportunism can thrive during times of uncertainty and fear.
Exactly. Nixon understood the power of fear and used it to his advantage. His tactics sadly foreshadowed a style of politics that would become increasingly common in the decades that followed.
Now, shifting gears a bit, Hiltzik also explores the emergence of the modern environmental movement in California, particularly following the 1969 Santa Barbara oil spill. That event seemed to be a turning point in how people viewed the environment.
The Santa Barbara oil spill was a watershed moment for the environmental movement. The devastating images of oil-soaked birds and beaches sparked widespread outrage and led to a wave of environmental legislation both in California and at the federal level. It was a wake-up call for the nation.
It's like those images galvanized public awareness of the environmental crisis and fueled a demand for change.
Exactly. The oil spill made it abundantly clear that the pursuit of economic growth could have devastating consequences for the natural world. It forced people to confront the true costs of unchecked industrial expansion.
And that realization sparked a shift in public consciousness, right? Hiltzik describes how the environmental movement gained momentum throughout the 1970s and beyond, leading to the passage of landmark environmental laws and the creation of new agencies like the Environmental Protection Agency.
The environmental movement in California became a model for other states and the nation as a whole. It demonstrated the power of grassroots activism and the growing recognition that environmental protection is essential for the health and well-being of present and future generations. It's a testament to California's leadership in environmental policy, pushing for stricter regulations and promoting sustainability.
So we see California at the forefront of social, political, and environmental movements. It's like a testing ground for new ideas and approaches to these challenges.
Absolutely. California's unique relationship with its environment, both its beauty and its fragility, has shaped its identity and its politics. But that relationship continues to evolve, especially as the state faces new environmental challenges like climate change and drought.
And that brings us to the present day. Hiltzik concludes his book with a look at the challenges and opportunities facing California in the 21st century. What are some of the key takeaways from that section?
Hiltzik argues that California is at a crossroads. It has achieved incredible success, but it's also facing a new set of challenges. Income inequality, housing affordability, climate change, political polarization. These are complex, interconnected issues that require innovative solutions.
So even with its storied past and its successes, California still faces an uncertain future.
In a way, yes. The stakes are higher than ever before. The choices Californians make today will have a profound impact not only on the future of the state, but perhaps even on the nation and the world.
It sounds like California is entering a new era of extremes where both the potential rewards and the risks are greater than ever.
That's the essence of California. It's a place where boundaries are constantly being pushed, where the impossible seems possible, and where the future unfolds in unpredictable ways. It's a state that continues to captivate and challenge us, forcing us to grapple with big questions about progress, sustainability, and the kind of world we want to create.
It really makes you think, doesn't it?
Mm.
With all of California's triumphs and struggles, what does its story tell us about the future?
That's the big question Hiltzik leaves us pondering. California has always been a place of extremes, a land of immense promise, but also daunting challenges. It's a reminder that progress is never a straight line.
Right.
The choices we make today will inevitably shape the California of tomorrow.
It feels like California is constantly on the edge of something big, both in good ways and maybe not so good ways.
That's always been the case with California, hasn't it? It's a place where boundaries are constantly pushed, where the impossible seems within reach. But it's also a place where the consequences of those big swings, those bold decisions, can be felt for generations.
So after this deep dive into Hiltzik's book, what's your biggest takeaway? What should listeners keep in mind about the story of California?
For me, the biggest takeaway is that California's history is not just a collection of events. It's a reflection of our ongoing struggle to balance ambition with responsibility to create a society that's both prosperous and just. California's story reminds us that progress requires constant vigilance, a willingness to learn from the past, and a commitment to creating a better future.
That's a powerful message, and it's something all of us, whether we live in California or not, can learn from.
Exactly. California's story is ultimately a human story full of triumphs and tragedies, innovations and setbacks. It's a story that continues to unfold, and its next chapters will be written by the choices we make today.
Wow, that was quite a journey through California's past, present, and even a glimpse into its future. What resonated with you most during our deep dive? Share your favorite moment from the book in the comments below and let us know what you'd like us to explore next. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like and share it with your friends. We'll see you next time.